The night began with unease. A wife, suspicious of her husband's behavior, decided to investigate further. Her findings led her down a path she never anticipated, evidence of betrayal so personal it shook her world. Fueled by shock and heartbreak, she made the fateful decision to confront her husband and the person she trusted most, her sister. As she drove to her sister's home, thoughts raced through her mind. How could they have done this? Why? But she could not have imagined how events would unfold in the hours that followed. This confrontation would ignite a series of events that ended in tragedy, leaving a family shattered and a community in disbelief. What truly happened that night? And what pushed the boundaries of love, trust, and betrayal to such an explosive conclusion? In this episode, we uncover the story of betrayal, loss, and the chilling aftermath of a wife's discovery. Our story begins in a quiet town nestled among rolling hills, where life seems simple and predictable. It was a place where everyone knew their neighbors, and family bonds were cherished above all else. Among its residents were Sarah, her husband Michael, and her sister Emily, three individuals whose lives were intertwined in ways that no one could have foreseen. Sarah was a devoted teacher, admired for her dedication to her students and her warm presence in the community. Known for her kind smile and encouraging words, she was a person others turned to for guidance and support. At home, she was seen as the cornerstone of her family, a loving wife to Michael and a doting sister to Emily. Michael, Sarah's husband of 10 years, was a local contractor whose work often took him out of town. He was considered reliable and hardworking, someone who provided for his family without fail. Together, Sarah and Michael appeared to have built a life many envied. They were active in the community, frequently attending local events and hosting gatherings at their home. To the outside world, they represented stability and harmony. Emily, Sarah's younger sister, had a different kind of reputation in the town. She was vivacious and outgoing, the life of every party. Unlike Sarah, who preferred quiet evenings at home, Emily thrived in the spotlight. Despite their differences, the two sisters were inseparable. They shared childhood memories, family traditions, and secrets only siblings would understand. Sarah often referred to Emily as her best friend, someone she trusted implicitly. The bond between Sarah and Emily was something the community admired. It wasn't unusual to see the sisters together, shopping at the local market, laughing over coffee, or organizing charity events. They were often described as two halves of the same heart, a relationship that seemed unbreakable. But behind the smiles and shared moments, there were undercurrents in their lives that no one could see. Michael's frequent work trips, Emily's spontaneous nature, and Sarah's quiet dedication to her family were pieces of a puzzle that, when put together, would tell a far darker story. The town, small and close-knit, had its fair share of gossip, but no one could have anticipated the storm that was about to unfold. The trust that bound Sarah, Michael, and Emily together was about to be tested in a way that would leave a lasting scar on the community. As we unravel the events leading to that fateful night, we must ask ourselves, how well do we really know the people closest to us? And how far can betrayal reach before it shatters everything we hold dear? It started like any other day in Sarah's life. Routine, predictable. She went to work, greeted her students, and poured her heart into her lesson plans. But something had been gnawing at her for weeks. Michael had been acting distant, his phone always out of reach, his explanations for late nights more frequent and less convincing. For a woman who trusted easily and loved deeply, doubt had become a shadow in her mind. That evening, while tidying the house, Sarah stumbled upon something she couldn't ignore. Receipts. Receipts for expensive dinners at a restaurant she had never been to. And on dates Michael had claimed he was working. There were hotel bookings too, all charged to his account. The details were there in black and white, glaring at her, forcing her to confront what she had been dreading. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah checked Michael's phone, a step she had never taken before. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Messages between him and someone saved as E. They were affectionate, intimate, and unmistakably damning. A photo attached to one message revealed the unthinkable, her own sister Emily. The betrayal was devastating, but Sarah wasn't the type to let anger consume her without answers. She needed to confront them. She grabbed her keys and drove straight to Emily's house, her mind racing with a mix of heartbreak and determination. What she found there, however, would change everything. Sarah arrived at Emily's modest home, her heart pounding. She knocked on the door and Emily answered, her face a mix of surprise and unease. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Michael was there too, his expression turning from shock to guilt the moment he saw Sarah. Confrontation was inevitable. The argument that followed was raw and emotional. Sarah demanded answers, her voice trembling with the weight of betrayal. Emily tried to explain, but her words only deepened the wounds. Michael stood frozen, caught between the two women he had betrayed. The confrontation grew heated, accusations flying, emotions running high. Neighbors later reported hearing raised voices and the sound of something breaking. Eventually, Sarah stormed out, her tears blinding her as she drove home. Her world had crumbled in an instant. Back at her house, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. She paced the living room, her thoughts a chaotic mix of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. Hours passed, but the pain didn't subside. Michael returned home, and the tension reignited. Their argument escalated quickly, fueled by the emotions both had tried to suppress. Words turned into shouts, and shouts turned into something far darker. The once peaceful home became a battleground, the love they had shared now a distant memory. By the end of the night, the situation had spiraled beyond anyone's control. Police reports later detailed the violent confrontation, leaving the community stunned and a family irreparably broken. What truly happened in those final moments remains a haunting mystery. But one thing is certain, the choices made that night left a scar that would never heal. The call came into the local police station just after midnight. Dispatchers described a frantic voice on the other end, a neighbor reporting loud yelling, and a sudden chilling silence from the home of Sarah and Michael. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows across the quiet street. Officers cautiously entered the home, their steps heavy with the uncertainty of what awaited them. Inside, they found chaos. Furniture was overturned, broken glass littered the floor, and a heavy tension seemed to linger in the air. In the living room, Sarah lay motionless. First responders quickly confirmed what they feared. She was gone. Nearby, Michael sat slumped, his hands shaking as he stared at the floor. Officers detained him immediately, noting the deep scratches on his arms and the bruises forming on his face. The investigation began in earnest as crime scene technicians meticulously documented every detail. Photographs were taken of the disarray, blood spatter patterns analyzed, and potential weapons identified. Among the items collected was a kitchen knife lying near Sarah's body. Its presence raised questions about whether it had been used in the altercation or was simply caught in the chaos of the night. Detectives turned their attention to Michael. His initial statements were fragmented and evasive, painting a picture of a man overwhelmed by guilt and fear. He claimed the argument had escalated unexpectedly, that emotions had overtaken reason, but his version of events lacked consistency, and investigators pressed him for more. Witnesses were next on the list. Neighbors described hearing the argument earlier that evening at Emily's house. They reported Sarah's anguished voice accusing both Michael and Emily of betrayal, followed by the sound of a door slamming as Sarah left. The timeline began to take shape, but questions linger about what had truly occurred behind closed doors. Emily's involvement complicated the investigation further. When questioned, she admitted to the affair but denied any knowledge of the events leading to Sarah's death. Her cooperation seemed genuine, but her role in the betrayal cast a shadow of doubt. Detectives faced the challenge of disentangling the personal dynamics from the physical evidence. The community, meanwhile, was in shock. News of the affair and its tragic outcome spread quickly, sparking debates and speculation. The betrayal within the family amplified the public's interest, making it a case that everyone seemed to have an opinion on. Local reporters swarmed the neighborhood, their cameras capturing the grief-stricken faces of friends and neighbors as they grappled with the reality of what had happened. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered additional evidence. A series of texts between Michael and Emily exchanged hours before the confrontation. The messages revealed plans to meet again and expressions of guilt over the affair, but contained no indication of an intention to harm Sarah. These communications added another layer of complexity, raising questions about whether the tragedy was truly an accident or the result of premeditated actions. Despite their progress, detectives faced obstacles at every turn. The emotional volatility of the case made witness accounts inconsistent, and the lack of clear forensic evidence left room for doubt. Piecing together the events of that night required not only a technical understanding of the evidence, but also a deep dive into the psychological dynamics of betrayal, anger, and loss. As the investigation continued, the focus shifted to the legal ramifications. Was this a crime of passion or something more deliberate? The community watched anxiously as the pieces of the puzzle slowly came together, each revelation bringing them closer to understanding the devastating truth. The arrest of Michael unfolded swiftly after the initial investigation. Police officers escorted him from the crime scene under the watchful eyes of neighbors and reporters who had gathered nearby. As the handcuffs clicked into place, it was a stark moment of realization for both Michael and the community that a life had been lost and someone would be held accountable. In the days leading to the trial, prosecutors worked tirelessly to build their case. The evidence was extensive. Photographs of the crime scene, the knife recovered near Sarah's body, and forensic reports confirming the struggle that preceded her death. But perhaps the most compelling element was the series of text messages between Michael and Emily, exposing the affair and providing critical context for the tragic confrontation. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Family members of both Sarah and Michael sat on opposite sides, their grief and disbelief evident. The community, still reeling from the shock, followed the proceedings closely, with news outlets providing daily updates. The prosecution painted a harrowing picture of the events that night. They argued that Michael, consumed by guilt and desperation, acted out in anger when confronted by Sarah. Witnesses were called to testify, including the neighbor who had heard the argument and Emily herself. Emily's testimony was particularly impactful as she recounted the moments leading up to Sarah's arrival at her house, her own confrontation with her sister, and the heartbreak of witnessing her family unravel in such a devastating way. The defense, on the other hand, portrayed Michael as a man overwhelmed by emotions. They argued that Sarah's discovery of the affair had led to a volatile confrontation, one that tragically escalated beyond anyone's control. They pointed to Michael's immediate call to emergency services after the incident as evidence of his remorse and lack of intent. Testimonies from character witnesses further complicated the narrative. Friends and colleagues described Sarah as a compassionate, devoted teacher and wife, someone who had dedicated her life to her family and her students. Michael's co-workers, however, spoke of his increasing stress in recent months, hinting at a man grappling with internal struggles that had gone unnoticed until it was too late. The jury also heard emotional statements from Sarah's parents, who expressed their devastation at losing a daughter under such circumstances. They spoke directly to Michael, questioning how someone she trusted could betray her so profoundly. As the trial neared its conclusion, the jury was presented with the final arguments. The prosecution emphasized the betrayal, the rage, and the irreversible consequences of that night. The defense urged the jury to consider the human element, the emotional chaos of betrayal, and the possibility that the tragedy was not a calculated act, but a momentary lapse in judgment. After several days of deliberation, the verdict was announced: guilty of voluntary manslaughter. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, sorrow, and outrage. Michael was sentenced to 15 years in prison, a decision that left some feeling justice had been served while others believed it fell short. In the aftermath, the community struggled to heal. The betrayal that had torn apart one family rippled through the town, leaving scars that would take years to mend. Memorials for Sarah were held at her school, where students and colleagues honored her memory. For Michael's family, the sentence marked the beginning of a new chapter of reckoning and reflection. The case left lingering questions. Could it have been prevented? What signs, if any, were missed? And how does a community move forward after such a profound loss? These questions remain unanswered, a testament to the complexities of human relationships and the devastating consequences they can bring. The trial brought a sense of closure for some, but the questions surrounding Sarah's tragic death continue to haunt those connected to the case. Was the affair the sole trigger for the events that unfolded, or did deeper hidden tensions between Michael and Sarah play a role? Friends and family speculated about the pressures they faced as a couple. Were there unresolved conflicts, financial strain, or emotional wounds that may have fueled the confrontation that night? For many in the community, these questions have no easy answers. Close friends of the couple recalled occasional arguments, but none had anticipated such a catastrophic end. Some pointed to the emotional weight of Sarah's discovery. Was it the betrayal itself, or the specific betrayal involving her sister, Emily, that ignited such devastation? Others have debated whether the tragedy could have been prevented. Were there warning signs of the volatile emotions brewing beneath the surface? Could closer friends or family members have intervened to de-escalate the tension before it reached a breaking point? This has sparked conversations in the community about the importance of recognizing signs of emotional distress and supporting those experiencing intense personal conflict. Michael's defense team has hinted at the possibility of an appeal, citing his emotional state as a critical factor that may not have been fully considered in court. Legal experts have debated the fairness of the verdict and sentence, while others argue that no punishment could truly address the depth of the loss. For the families involved, healing has been an uphill battle. Sarah's parents have devoted themselves to preserving her legacy, creating scholarships in her name to support young educators. Emily, on the other hand, has remained largely out of the public eye, facing the dual burden of grief and guilt. The town itself continues to grapple with the emotional aftermath. Vigils and discussions have become a way for the community to process the tragedy and foster dialogue about relationships, betrayal, and forgiveness. But even with these efforts, the lingering unease remains, a reminder of how fragile trust can be and how swiftly lives can change. As we reflect on this case, one question stands above the rest. Could this devastating outcome have been avoided? While answers may remain elusive, the story of Sarah's life and death continues to resonate, serving as a stark cautionary tale about the consequences of betrayal and the human cost of unresolved conflict. As we come to the end of this tragic story, we're reminded of the profound impact that betrayal can have, not only on individuals but on entire families and communities. The web of trust that binds relationships is fragile, and when it's shattered, the consequences can be far-reaching and devastating. Sarah's story is a painful testament to how emotional wounds, when left unaddressed, can escalate into unimaginable outcomes. Her untimely death leaves behind a trail of grief, unanswered questions, and a community struggling to make sense of it all. But this case also raises larger questions about how we navigate betrayal and conflict in our personal lives. How do we confront difficult truths while avoiding destructive consequences? And how do we, as a society, offer support to those grappling with emotional pain and betrayal? We want to hear from you. What do you think about the events that unfolded in this case? Have you experienced or witnessed similar situations where trust was broken? And how did it shape your perspective? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Next week, we'll delve into another gripping case, this time involving a seemingly perfect family hiding a dark and dangerous secret. Don't miss it.